Hey gang, so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about side mount fundamentals, the top position. My personal favorite place in jiu-jitsu is side mount. It's an incredibly strong position to be in, but it also should be a very dynamic position to be in. One of the first ideas I want you to keep in mind that when I'm in side control top, get my partner on his back real fast, let's turn this way if you would. A lot of beginners tend to, well, and a lot of coaches teach us too. So we put our hands together, we lock our hands together, typically with gable grip. We bring our knees up and we pin. But that's not getting me closer to a finish at any point. Okay? The key to really strong side control is fluid movement. It's how well I can switch my base, how well I can transition. That's going to greatly determine how well I stay on top, and more importantly, how long I stay on top outside of the legs or without a reversal. So that's our first idea to pay attention to. The next is the concept of weight and wedges. And you very likely could have heard this in other videos before, but weight, regardless of how much pressure I'm putting down, without effective wedge sets, is pointless. So, a common example, so say I put my hands behind my back, I'm gonna put all of my body weight on my partner. Can you feel my pressure?
Yep.
Okay, that's good. You can hear his breathing is labored. Okay, can you recover your guard? With ease. Very little effort. I'm putting all my body weight on him. I'm 205 pounds currently. Didn't slow him down a bit. So now, I'm gonna put very little weight, but I'm gonna use effective wedges. One wedge is gonna go under the head, and ideally, getting a grip behind the armpit. My opposite arm is gonna go on the outside of the hip, blocking it in, and then I'm gonna use, in this case, I'm gonna use my hip. I can use my knee or my hip, doesn't matter. In this case, I'm gonna use my hip against his hip. So now, if he tries to recover guard, nothing, okay? And notice my body's even moving with him because that's how little weight I'm putting down on him. So that's our next idea to pay attention to. The third idea we're going to talk about today is our fundamental checklist. This is really, it helps when we're in positions that we have a list of priorities. What is most important right now? What's next most important? Because if we are going to learn everything about a position, you're going to be so inundated with information, you're going to have paralysis by analysis, which is a very, very common thing in jiu-jitsu, especially when you're beginning. So my number one priority always when I'm passing guard, let's say, or after I pass guard, let's say I'm passing from side control or half guard, is getting a body part to that intersection of my partner's sideline and his hip line. Almost every guard pass is going to revolve around me putting a body part here at the intersection of his hip line and his torso. And that is our number one priority, is always denying the guard. It doesn't matter what variation of side control I'm playing, whether I'm playing Kesa Gatame, modified Kesa Gatame, any variation of standard side mount, reverse Kesa, they all have a component that has a body part against the hip line. Because my partner on bottom has four options. He can recover his guard, he can escape to his feet or his knees, he can submit me, he can reverse me. By far the easiest option for him is to put me back into his guard. A really common example is, let's say I get really strong upper body control, and I've got wedges here, and I'm putting a lot of weight on them, okay? Notice my hips are elevated a little bit. So how hard is it for you to recover your guard now?
Not hard at all.
Okay, easy. Because I'm not paying attention to priority number one, which is denying the guard. That is always gonna be priority number one. So regardless of whether we get to step 2, step 3, we can never forget about step 1. Okay, so step 2, that is my upper body control. So I am now actively blocking the guard. Step 2 is active head control, okay? And again, what I want you guys to think about, instead of locking your hands together in a classic grip, like a pin, okay? Because in jiu-jitsu, a pin is only a small portion of the equation. So instead, once I get under the head, I'm gonna get a nice bowling ball grip in the armpit. I want you to bring his head to your shoulder, and then we put our shoulder pressure on. So now, step 1, step 2, I'm consistently and actively blocking the guard, denying the guard, and now I'm keeping my opponent's shoulders on the mat, and I'm controlling where his chin is pointed. This takes us to step 3. My next concern is going to be this inside arm, this inside frame. That is going to be the easiest tool he has at his disposal, especially after I've managed to pin him to create space. So if he starts putting that elbow in my hip and starts creating space, he's going to be able to shrimp out, connecting his knee and elbow together, even if I'm staying super tight. Okay? If I don't deny, or if I don't eliminate this elbow, then I'm going to be moving backwards very, very quickly. And in jiu-jitsu, we never, ever want to move backwards. It's a game of moving forward, okay? So really what we're doing here is we're systematically eliminating our opponent's tools. And if we get very good at systematically eliminating our opponent's tools, you are going to be able to stay in that dominant position for as long as you want. The submissions are going to be wherever you want them to be at that point. And a lot of times they're just going to present themselves and you can go, oh, look at that, it's right there. Okay? So step number 4 is now that I have killed that inside arm, and we're going to look at a few ways to kill that inside arm in just a second. Now I'm free to isolate and attack this outside arm. Okay? And that is really kind of a fundamental way to look at side mount. Step 1, deny the guard. Step 2, control the head and the shoulders. Step 3, kill the inside arm. Step 4, create situations. In this case, it's a 3-on-1 situation. I have 2 hands and my head against 1 arm. And then we have our standard T-locks, our straight arm locks, our Kimuras, wrist locks, etc., etc. That is just one component of our submissions from top side mount, but this is a very fundamental way to learn side mount and to develop in side mount. So what we're going to look at now really quickly is A, how we deny the guard, and B, how we kill that inside arm. Because if you master these tools, you are going to become very frustrating for the person on bottom, regardless of who it is and how strong they are. So step number 1, denying the guard. Okay? So we'll look at it from a couple different angles. So my partner is able to create some space. He's able to get his knee inside my hip line. So once he does that, immediately what we're going to do is we're going to release our head control arm, and I'm just going to trace it back to find his tricep just above the elbow. Okay? But what I want to do, his knees are going this direction, or his knee is going this direction now, and it's inside of my hips. Okay? So he's putting a spacer in between us. So all that I want to do is I just want to rotate my base so my knees are going the exact same direction. And right now, I'm surfing on his inside leg. Okay? My butt's not touching the ground anymore. So now, I'm going to keep my hips elevated, get ahead of his knee. Once I get ahead of the knee, I can lower my big butt, and then I'm going to walk his knees away. And then we can settle right back into position again. Okay, so let's turn the angle a little bit. Same thing, he gets the knee in, we turn with it. We get ahead of it, and then we walk it away. Okay, so that's step 1. That is going with it. We can either go with it, we can go around it, or we can block it. So that's going with it. So going around it. Next step, he gets the knee inside. Again, I'm going to release that head control arm. We're going to cut to the inside of the outside arm, and I'm going to switch my base using my knee to block his guard attempt. Okay? And in this case, again, when I switch my base, my right knee is going to come just on the inside of his left knee, and it's going to block it out with the base switch. Both of these are base switches, and again, we talked about the concept of having fluid top pressure. One position is never going to be the answer. If I give the person on bottom that's underneath me, if I give them one problem to solve, any grappler that's worth his salt is going to be able to solve that problem sooner than later. So our job is to continually give them a different problem over and over and over and over again. So one more time, option B, he tucks the knee in. Again, I'm going to switch my base, and now we block out the guard. And typically now, we'll turn a little bit. Once I've done that, I'll diaper check with the left hand so I can pin him back to his back, and then we'll come back to our control position. Okay, we'll scoot this way just a little bit. Okay, and option 3, that was going around it. So we can go with it, which is option 1, go around it, which is option 2. Option 3 is block and move away. Okay, so this time, same thing. I'm going to release my outside arm this time, and I'm going to put my fist in that spot that we talked about earlier, that intersection of his hip line and his side line. And I'm just going to put my fist straight in that pocket, which is going to give me the time to move my hips away, either to a high 45 ride, or to a north-south position, or to transition all the way around to the other side. Okay? So let's do it one more time from this side. Gets the knee in. We're going to block. And we move away. Very, very simple. So those are your 3 options for denying the guard. Very quickly, we're going to look at killing the inside arm, and that's going to be our last step for this video. So again, this inside frame against my hip, if I allow it, it's going to give him space. I'm going to lose position. Especially when you're rolling with somebody that is substantially physically stronger than you. Once they put those frames against you and start pushing you, if you don't learn how to kill those frames, you're going to be subject to that at all times. Okay. So option 1, elbow to my hip. Very similar to how we block the guard out. I'm going to grab the elbow or not. I'm going to switch my hips under to a modified Tessa, and then we're going to roll it right back. Okay. Bringing my knee up to the ear, and then immediately that arm that was under the head can come over to the far side, and I can box his head in between my knee and my elbow, putting us in that 3-on-1 option. 2 hands, 1 head against 1 arm. Let's slide back this way a little bit. Okay, so again, elbows in my hip, switch, switch. That's it. Okay, and it's dead. Can you put your elbow back in my hip now? Okay, exactly. That's my goal. And that's the test for it. If you can put his elbow back in my hip after I've done that, then we need to tighten the ship up. Option 2, let's say the elbow's in a little bit tighter this time, or a little bit further in. So now we're going to bring that head control arm over to the other side, and we're going to switch our hips in the opposite direction, which is going to pin his wrist to his shoulder, which doesn't feel very comfortable. So very often, to relieve the pressure, he's going to pop that arm out towards his hips. Okay? And once he does that, turn this way a little bit. See, I've got this arm free here. We can start attacking this arm now with straight arm locks, bent arm locks. I've got free shots in the mount. Okay. And then our third option is going to be stapling. Okay, same thing. He frames. I'm going to start switching my base just like we did in option 1. But now I'm going to find his wrist and punch my shin over with a staple. It's really important with the staple. My shin's going right to the crook of the elbow, and I'm keeping opposing pressures on it. So I'm pulling on the wrist as I'm pushing with my shin. Of course, we've got a gooseneck wrist lock right here, but typically when we staple with this first leg, we're going to keep the pressure on until I kick it out, and then I always want to switch the staple. So now I can start stepping around the head if I want to. And then of course, switch positions into our north-south Kimuras, back takes, etc. Okay, one more time on the last one. Frames, switch, staple 1, staple 2, then we can start bringing them up. Okay, so again, this is not the sexy stuff, but this is the stuff that if you master, your ride time and side control, north-south, even knee on belly, is going to go up dramatically. And therefore, your submission game is also going to go up dramatically. Okay, thanks for watching.